Hi, this is Bob Moran, the CEO of Accessibility Shield and ASX Partner,
Hi, this is Dennis Zahner, Executive Director and CEO of Sites for Hope,
and you're listening to
White Canes Connect.
Hey there, PA Federationists. Welcome to another episode of White Canes Connect, presented by the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. Now, here are your hosts, Lisa Bryant and Simon Bonenfant.
Hey there, Simon. How are you?
I'm doing well, Lisa.
Thanks for guest co-hosting. And what a very interesting topic. And seems like it's a thorn in our side, the fight to make websites universally accessible to people with visual impairments.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure we've all experienced situations where an app was inaccessible or a website was inaccessible. And today we're talking about a company that can alleviate some of those problems for web developers and users of websites. We're talking to Accessibility Shield. We spoke with Bob Moran and Dennis Zahner from Sites for Hope, which is a client of Accessibility Shield. And it was kind of cool that Sites for Hope does things for the blind and visually impaired. They serve our community, and they're also a client of Accessibility Shield. So it kind of went hand in hand together.
So let's take a listen. Dennis and Bob, so nice to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So this is a very timely topic, talking about accessibility in terms of websites being accessible for blind and low vision people. In our area, the Philadelphia region, there have been some lawsuits around this, and it's just kind of always been a thing in the blind and visual impaired community where you'll go to websites and there's no image description. There's no markings to tell you what part of the website you're on. So because, this is, like I said, always on our radar, I was doing some research, came across Accessibility Shield, and reached out to Bob. And so that's how we're all here. So we'll talk about the nooks and crannies of what is accessible. And Dennis, of course, you can talk about the work that, as you were telling us offline, is still in progress. But before we get into that, I wanted each of you to sort of give a general overview of who you are, what your agencies or your companies do, and then we'll get into more detail. So starting with you, Dennis, what is Sites for Hope? When did it come about, and what services do you provide?
Sites for Hope's actually been in existence since 1928, so we're coming near our 100-year mark. What we do is we work to provide people who live with blindness and visual impairments the skills, supports, and solutions that advance their self-sufficiency. Now, at our core, what we're really about is removing barriers to independence. Our clients are people whose abilities to perform daily life tasks are impeded because of blindness or visual impairment. We serve throughout the Lehigh Valley and Monroe County in eastern Pennsylvania. That's a 3-county area with a population of somewhere around 850,000 people. And as I said, we've been in existence since 1928. We've been serving in Monroe County since 2002. We have a large suite of services. One is we teach adaptive life skills, and we provide assistive technologies that help our clients actually accomplish daily tasks. We're about trying to keep people in their own homes. We take pride in that about 96% of our clients still live in their own homes and do not go into assisted living, which I think is a great thing. We provide casework assistance. We do a lot of services that are actually growing that deal with emotional well-being, because that's a bigger and bigger call every day. We also provide guided transport services, which are really about access to food, medical care, and critical needs, because obviously the people we serve can't drive, and that's something you take for granted if you can drive, and once you realize how important that is to get from point A to point B. When COVID hit, our drivers continued to serve because some of our clients needed to continue to get to the doctors. Some of them were in stage 2, stage 3 cancer, or they were had to get shots in their eyes, or they would go completely blind. So these are very important things, this access. We also have prevention services, which are focused on doing free vision screenings for kids ages 6 and under, and helping them get eye exams and glasses before they start school, which is such an important age.
Now, most of our listeners are blind and visually impaired, and as are me and Lisa. And how about you, Dennis?
I am of the sighted community, but I do have appreciation through personal experience. My late grandfather on my father's side was legally blind throughout his life. And he was also maybe the most naturally gifted, brilliant man I ever knew. Now, he grew up in Philadelphia, actually, in the 1930s. He graduated top of his class from his high school, but he was legally blind and had basically no money, and nobody gave him a chance to figure out what he could be. He definitely was smart enough for college. He was great in the STEM subjects. I've said he could have been an early NASA guy, but it doesn't really matter what. The problem was the man never got a chance to figure out or pursue his destiny. And he passed away in 2001. And in the years since, though, I've become more and more angry personally that he didn't have that chance. Now, there's nothing I could do about that now. But when this opportunity to join this organization now called Sights for Hope came about, I thought a lot about him and thought about, and that's kind of what we do, is we hopefully are about giving people a chance to pursue their destiny again, whatever that is and whatever they want it to be.
Yeah. So like leveling the playing field, so to speak. Bob, tell us about Accessibility Shield. I'm curious, was there a gap or a void that you saw and stepped in to try to fill it? Is that how it came about?
Yes, exactly. Well, yes, it's so when we're not as old as Dennis's organization. We started informally about 2017. We incorporated in 2019. But what came about for us is we were actually at we started as a development firm called BMG Digital Technologies, and we were at a trade show looking at a new program that we were putting in place for marketing companies so that they could crawl or scan websites. Well, as it be, serendipity or God's hand, or however you want to call it, we were next to our booth was next to another organization from New York that serviced blind individuals, and they were doing testing, manual testing for websites, and they asked us, "Hey, can you modify that technology to find, errors in the code regarding accessibility?" Because what most people don't realize is that when the World Wide Web was originally founded back in the early 90s, that one of the goals was to make it accessible specifically for handicapped people, to bridge the gap on communication so it would become so information and could be transferred through easier ways for all people. And when it was found, but what happened is a lot of, as developers got fancier and tricks became more, flashy, or things became more visual, or the developers lost their way. So what we found, so at this right now, about 99% of most websites are not accessible for people with this. Yeah, it's a ridiculously high number. So we found this out. We got excited. We started looking into it, and we modified our code so that we could track. We used some open source coding, but we developed a proprietary system that could track and identify any code issues that would cause that would affect screen readers or assistive technology to not record or help people with disabilities from all levels, not just sighted. Primarily sighted is the number one, but it's also for people with color blindness is another one, but also audio issues, as well as sensitive light and like autistic, spending on these flashing lights. So everything that you do that it's built in certain sites can have an effect on people. So what we were able to do with our system was we developed a way to track it. Now the problem is that most automated systems only catch about 40% of all issues. So if if anybody's telling you that they have like a widget or an add-on or something that'll do it all for you,
Yeah.
they're not being truthful. You really need to do the final manual audit. But what our system, so in order to enable this, our system not only helps you identify those 40, and we have AI use now that generates so that our system's constantly getting better. So we're increasing that percentage of identifying. But then we also have certified auditors from the International Association of Accessibility Professionals that can manually audit. So our system will help you capture and track. So we build a project management system into the methodology, so that now instead of being, a lot of people do this through spreadsheets and they do a lot of paper and pushing, or going back and forth. Ours is all on our servers. It helps our clients to make the system quicker. It's quicker to fix it or identify it and then help people fix it quick. So our idea was, our vision, our core purpose is digital accessibility for all. So, and I know that sounds very lofty, which is what a core purpose usually is, or vision. But the idea is, and we're also more of a wholesaler. So our idea is we want to get to people who can do that. I mean, we do retail, we have our partnerships with like dentists and other clients, but so that they can sell the product and then we can expand it geometrically. Does that make sense?
It does. And before we got on, Simon and I were talking, and Simon, he's in this world a little more than I am, and he's a little more articulate in this field. So I know he's got some very specific questions for you, Dennis. I'm sorry, Bob. But Dennis, before we get to that, how did you guys come together? How did this partnership begin, Dennis?
Sure. Before I became the executive director with this organization, I was actually the director of advancement, and I actually was at a conference down at Atlanta, and also down there was the head of the Pennsylvania Association for the Blind. He was the acting director at the time. And I was talking about how we were in the midst of coming up with a new name, which we hadn't arrived at Slice for Hope yet, but we were working on a new name at that point. And we wanted to redo our website and we wanted to take it into the next level. And he suggested Accessibility Shield so that we can try to build something that has that accessibility. It is a work in progress, I will tell you. There are things that we continue to learn and we're continuing to develop. Our goals are lofty too, and sometimes they take a little time. But we found some good partners in them. And one thing I always believed in is, everybody should still have the best web experience they can, and not only be accessible, but also not take anything for granted just because someone may have a visual disability or a visual impairment. You should still make sure that your website is as powerful as in giving its messaging as you can. There's no sense of, well, they can't see, so what does it matter? Well, it does matter. And we're hoping we are about removing barriers, and we're trying to do that with our digital media.
I know it definitely does matter for your clients and the people that you serve, because you're serving the blind and visually impaired community. And what a great opportunity for Accessibility Shield to fill that need of an accessible website for the blind to a group that is giving services to the blind. So it seems like a nice match there.
It is. Now we have two audiences with our website now, because there is an audience, of course, among the people we serve, but we also are trying to make it more forward for the community to help drive revenue for our organization. But I believe in setting the best example that you can. So if we want to espouse these values, we should do our best to live them.
Bob, we're talking a lot about accessibility in terms of what is accessible versus what is not accessible. For those who are unaware, can you describe what are some of the unique challenges that blind and visually impaired users of the internet face? in 2024?
For a website to specifically be accessible, there's main flow and headers of the coding that have to be followed, so that as screen readers are built, they follow certain patterns and flows. And if you're not marking or identifying them, like pictures need an alt tag, right? And what that does is that will not only, if it'll describe what the picture is, so that if somebody's visually impaired, it may say, I'll give you a great example. Is there's one that we had when George Bush was signing the ADA laws back in the 90s. It would say President George Bush is signing. If it's not properly identified and coded, it would just skip right by it.
Mm-hmm.
So that as a visitor to that site, you would never know that it was even there or aware of it. It helps bring things to light more for our reading, because it helps describe everything. The same goes for text, and the way that if things are not set up, I'm so just so you know, I'm not an IT guy, so I'll do the best I can for that. But it's same goes for text. If it's not put in the proper order or using the proper code, it'll skip over. So you may lose an entire section of content, and then people won't understand, and it'll just say end. And then you're like, what was that? You can miss a whole page.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things that a lot of websites don't pay enough attention to, or they build it in piecemeal and they never go back to correct it, so that considering the 20% or so people of the population are disabled. I mean, that's it just doesn't make sense to build something for only a little bit over 3/4 of the world, right, to look at. So
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the misconceptions that some folks have, particularly in the web development space, is that if you make a site accessible, you'll lose out on using some of the more visual appealing graphics or visual appealing styles, things like that. But that is not the case. When you're talking about HTML code and web development, all of that information is done on the back end. So you used a great example of a picture that has alt text. That alt text will come up for the screen reader. But when you're cited, you can look at that image and you don't even see the alt text at all, right? That's just a label on the back end that the screen reader is reading. So nothing is getting compromised from the visual aesthetic feel or the premise of the website. Same goes for buttons or links or headings or any kind of navigational elements, which are essential to us, but it also opens up things such as a links list or navigating by headings or buttons or any kind of shortcuts that are built into the screen reader to make the navigation a little bit easier. Because with the screen reader, we don't read websites like a sighted person would, where you can just look at the whole site, you can read the whole screen. We go control by control and element by element.
Dennis, I'm wondering, with all of this, when you first started, what was the learning curve for you, in terms of what you had to, what you needed to make accessible, what accessible is, and examples of accessibility for all. For instance, I'm low vision. My experience on your website will be very different from Simon's experience. And I was playing around and I actually was navigating, rather fluently. I was hitting H for the headings and it was taking me right to. I did hear some image description, but that's where we are now. What was it like when you first started and you entered into this, accessibility? Like a lot of people, when they hear the word accessibility, they think more of physical accessibility, like ramps for wheelchairs. How about you?
Well, when we started, I knew I have come from a marketing and fundraising background, so I've worked on website projects before. And Simon makes a great point: is the misconception that you have to compromise the aesthetics, and that's absolutely not true. The short answer to your question is, I knew what I wanted in a website, but I didn't know how to make it accessible. I knew nothing. So it's been great to learn how some of these things work, and to my surprise, pleasant surprise, it was a situation where you didn't have to really cut a lot of things or change a lot of things. It's just how it's presented on the back end. Biggest thing right off the bat was learning alt tags. We're still in the process of cleaning up our alt tags. Yes, our images have alt tags, but here's something that I didn't even quite understand till it was pointed out to me. You don't start an alt tag with a photo of, because a lot of your screen readers will say a picture of automatically. So, I mean, depending on the screen reader, I don't know if every screen reader does this, and I don't pretend to be an expert, but some screen readers, they would say a picture of a photo of, and that's a disjunctive experience.
Yes, it'll say graphic. Yeah, it'll indicate some kind of a graphic. Yeah,
exactly. So how to do that? So it's been a great learning experience. Now, we had known that there were situations where there were some lawsuits involving website accessibility when we started. Obviously, nobody wants to be part of that, but again, we wanted to lead by example, and if we were going to build a website, let's do it the right way.
So I wonder, is this partnership with Accessibility Shield, it doesn't sound like it's a one and done relationship.
Oh, no.
No, it's not. Absolutely.
No. Well, first of all, yeah, as Dennis pointed out, it's a symbiotic relationship between us in terms of learning and growing. And I think, our developers, like I said, have all been certified with the WCAG Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. If there's standardization, it's been done through the WC3, which is an international organization for those standards. And as I said, we're certified to the IAAP. And as Dennis said, it was trying to educate all our clients on, and it's not necessarily Dennis so much; it's the developers, right? Because as Dennis pointed out, it's not the users that sometimes it's the people making it who have lost sight. Now, one of the things we've noticed, because some of our relationships have been with universities, is that it's starting to become more of the content in the course in the coursework in the educational platform that's been missing. So they have, because our goal, we believe that the sooner you can get this into the development cycle, which is why we like to work with our partners the way we do, the sooner it becomes more of a natural, and you're not correcting things, you're building it properly from the start.
A good example from our site is we have places where we want to have sponsor logos or logos of organizations and foundations that have helped us on there, and they want that exposure. But then how do you do that? So Bob's team, what they did is we found something that did exist, but how to reshape it and reframe it so that it works for the sighted world, but also works with accessibility. My understanding is a lot of what Bob's team does is remediate existing things. We're one of the first things that they've actually built from square one. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we kind of have a different relationship. And so we continue to grow together.
Yeah. And that, I think we were talking before the recording about the difference between, the phrase goes accessible out the box. It's a much smoother process than trying to retrofit something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Bob, talk about that. Have there been clients that you've had to go in and fix things and make it right?
Well, depending on the relationship, as absolutely. So we do remediation, and in the case of Dennis's, we actually contract. Because of us wanting to have this relationship, and where Dennis was in his cycle of development, we helped recreate your whole new site, right, Dennis? And so from that perspective, that's unique. Most companies have already invested so much money in their sites that they don't want to do that. And we have made, depending on, because one of the things that we do is our system is so scalable for people that we want to be able to hit the smaller sites, right? The mom and pops or the small, as well as the large companies. There are some of our competitors. If you can't sign up for $20,000, they're not going to even look. We're not into that. Our idea is to try and, again, digital accessibility for all. And we work with marketing companies who have some of these smaller retailers or education or compliance organizations, and we help them try and work it out. And in some cases, it's a development process. You start and you attack the big things first, and you work because of our tracking system, we can identify the major issues. And once we fix them, then you just reprioritize, right? The revolving door, this one's the next one we should take up. And so in order to make sure that, to your point of getting it to the point of where people all want to do it, it's just more of a process of identifying and working with, some cases, a third-party developer, again, to educate and teach those developers. I mean, we also offer consulting services. So if our clients have a developer that's doing it, we'll meet with them and teach them. And we'll recommend code snippets.
So, Bob, what if I was at a step back from this and I was a business and I contacted you saying, I don't have a website right now, but I want to get a website and I want to make sure that it's accessible. Would your company actually be able to create my website and work with me to find the content that I want to be on there and the web design as well as the accessibility, or would I have to have a website first?
No, it would really be relative. We'd have to talk about exactly. We're not we've kind of, as I said, our original company was BMG Digital Press, right? Digital Technologies, and we did a lot of that. And we've kind of geared our systems and structure to be more of auditing, but we can do that like we've done with Dennis, and we will do that. In fact, we've had companies, now I can't say, yeah, so we've had companies that we said, let's just trash it and let's just start over.
Oh, wow.
Because it's that bad. So yes, we
Yeah.
will. But if you're using, if one of the things in our next iteration is we're working with WordPress, right? Which is, I guess, 70% of what most websites are built with. We've made some, we developed a Chrome extension, or I'll call it a browser extension, and we worked with some things that are really turnkey that we can use with WordPress to help make things more accessible from the get-go too. So we will do it, yes. So a long way around the answer is yes. How's that?
Great. So you mentioned that your project management system will identify the errors on the website, but does that system also offer and execute the fixes, or does that all happen on the developer's end after that comprehensive report is issued?
It's generally offered on the other end of it, unless again we are contracted to do the remediation. So we offer a cafeteria menu of options depending on what our clients want, because some of them can afford so much, some of them already have systems or partnerships in place, or they've already spent a lot of money with the web developer and are not willing to give up that relationship. And if they're already paying a support fee or something, that they don't want they want to pay us to fix it. So we can, we find it easier though to do the remediation because we can fix it. Like I'll say it this way: if I can identify it with the system, and then do the manual audit and then remediation all in one step, like in one. It's only one time, it may be a little longer process, but it's not like three different hands going into that pot, right, to fix it. It takes longer to do that. So it becomes cheaper in the long run if we do the remediation.
And I think sometimes it also has a little bit to do with who's on the other end. As I said, I build webs. I've been part of website builds or website projects before, so I know enough. I say I know enough to be dangerous sometimes. So I will work with our project manager through Accessibility Shield, and he'll say, "Okay, this is stuff I know you can do," and then I'll go through and do it. But if it's above my pay grade in that sense, then of course we trust the team to do it. But there are a lot of things that I'll get off the call with a project manager. I'll have a laundry list of things to do. But unfortunately, a lot of small organizations, especially small nonprofits, don't have somebody who can do that. To them, it's very much a foreign language. So it is very much great to have a service that can fix it for you.
Dennis, I wonder, if you could talk about from the standpoint of an executive director, and for the purpose of this conversation, let's just say a business owner, talk about the value in taking the time and expense of working with a partner like Accessibility Shield, because I think a lot of times, especially you mentioned small business owners, that just seems so overwhelming. How can I afford this, either the time or the money? But talk about how that may or may not kind of bite you on the other end of that if you don't make that investment.
Well, it can bite you on the other end if you don't make that investment. At the time we were beginning our website work, I believe it was Beyonce who had just gotten sued for a very substantial amount of money because a fan was on her website and couldn't order tickets to her concert. You think about what lawyer fees can be. One lawsuit, and you can really be spending a lot more than you spend on a service such as this. But I also think, and I think it's getting better with the generations, but you have to think of your digital presence as the same as your brick and mortar in terms of your value. It's part of who you are. You never know who's looking. There are times where I've talked to someone and said, "Oh yeah, I saw that on your website. That's good." There are times where if you do something on your website that might not be good, I could tell you, first of all, a lot of grant funders look at your website, number one. More than they even often say that they do. I also know of foundations who will not even consider funding somebody until they look at your website and kind of learn who you are. But it really is your front door. It really is your front door to the entire world. So it is, especially as things continue to evolve and through the next 20 some odd years, as of course the digital natives and the Gen Zs grow economic power, it's going to be a lot of fundraising is going to have to be done at that level and through the digital realm. So you really have to have your act together.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a great point. And I know that for a business perspective, when you look at commerce and providing services, blind people, visually impaired people, we spend money just like anybody else,
Absolutely.
So from a business perspective, if you don't make your services accessible, you could be losing out on potential customers, not only on the people who need the services, but also the people they tell about the issues that are not going to want to support those. And I know it also, as you mentioned, really goes along with your value set. If you have a mission statement and a value statement that is very inclusive, that has to be reflected. And I will say that I know even of some companies and agencies that claim to provide services to the blind, and yet their website, their front facing contact is not accessible. And as a blind person myself, I tend to think, well, how true is that commitment? If their front facing presence is not accessible, that can be telling about a company. So it's important.
Absolutely.
I agree.
I'm also a bit of a brand builder in my business. So building brands, and this is part of your brand. That is your man of your brand in many ways. So if your brand is about being as like our brand's about transforming lives and taking away barriers, so our website better not become a barrier in itself, or really shooting ourselves in the foot and contradicting ourselves and not living up to our values and our brand.
Yeah.
Well, as part of that brand, if I can tack on for a second, Simon, you mentioned about like the concept of a DEI initiatives, right? It should be part of that. It's as a business. Okay, so I'm going to I'm an exec. I was an executive at Wawa Incorporated. I don't know if you guys know what Wawa is out here in the Pennsylvania
Yeah.
area.
No, I don't think we
Okay.
have any clue what you're
So,
talking about. Please explain.
Not like I wasn't there 60 minutes ago.
so as you know, as a good corporate citizen, as we've always said, you always that's ingrained in me personally. It's one of the reasons when I retired, I joined this company. It's because I felt that this was another way to give back to something of value, that you want to do for the community at large and to help people that really need a service or an ability to help them fulfill what they need to do in their lives. And that's it just and as a business person, it's just smart business. I mean, you mentioned it, it's growing your market share. I mean, that's the other way you can sell this. And on top of it, so too, is that just we know we get a lot of clients have been sued 10, 20, $30,000.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, help. And so because of those things, some of the services we offer, one, we put an accessibility statement right up front on the page so that deters people from. Number two, we have a badge program, which monthly makes sure that we track and continue monitoring. So it's not like it's a one deal. We don't just do it. You can hire services, so we'll monitor to see it because when content's changing, I don't know if you're aware, but once you touch something on a website, you touch it here, it affects something down there.
Mm-hmm.
You may not even be aware. So that's what our system does, and we work with our clients, especially partners like Dennis and others, to make sure that they are, they're ahead of the curve, so they don't have that. We don't want people. We don't want to see anybody getting sued, and we'll go defend them in court. It's free of charge, by the way.
Speaking of the investment part of this, Bob, you can be as general as you'd like, but what sort of factors determine the cost to a client? What do you take into consideration?
Well, the first thing that we have to look at are the number of pages, right?
Okay.
Because the more content you have, that's going to determine, at least from an auto scan perspective, how often you have to look at it and what you're going through. Mm-hmm. And we can't go through every page, but what we do is in our sampling is we have a tendency to identify what are the most common pages or just layouts. And one of the things that we do with our system is based on if you do correct it, you can correct it on one page, mm-hmm. and correct all of them. So that we try again to reduce costs to our clients by ensuring that between the auto scan and the manual audit, and then the badge program or the remediation, it all depends. So sometimes, like I said, we'll work with it. We've worked with clients who've been sued, and instead of going in and trying to fix everything right away, you can go in and identify the major pieces. And when you go back to a judge or you talk to them and you show them that you're making progress, mm-hmm. Then they will disregard the suit because you're working towards what is called significant conformance, right? Because you can't be 100% just right. Because something changes. You can never be 100%, but you want to get as close as you can. And by doing it and working with our clients and chipping away at the major things and even just having one of our benefits of having that project management system is we can show a journey. If you're using spreadsheets or you have some other people that just use a system and don't really follow it, they don't have that. We have the journey. So we can prove to people that you were at X and now you're at Y. And we'll get to Z.
Simon, I think you wanted to know about distinctives in services.
Well, I just want to talk a little bit about the manual audit, which is a good lead into that when you were talking about all the possible options that you can go when looking at the individual company. And I know that it's a very individualized process. How does the manual testing work? Is that something that's done by the developers, or is it something that's done by the users of the product that would be impacted by the accessibility?
So that's a service that we offer. You have it. Our manual testers again are certified by the IAAP, so that they're taught and they have to pass. They have to get certification and re-up it every few years to make sure that they're following. We're on WCAG 2.1, I believe, right now, and they're heading towards WCAG 3.0, because we're also members of the WC3.
Yeah.
And so as a manual auditor, you really want to you don't want the developer necessarily to be testing their site. You want a
Right.
third party. And even when we do
Right,
it,
because not everyone can have the
Yeah.
knowledge to, just because you're a developer, you don't necessarily have the same knowledge base of how that site would work with an assistive technology, perhaps.
right, you want to make sure you have a third party, just like I guess a financial audit, right? You don't usually have the people doing the books audit their own books. Right. The way our system works and the way we do it is we will do the initial audit, give the developers or whoever's going to remediate a chance to do it, and then we verify that everything's correct.
Okay, so
Right.
they can go in and test with the screen reader
Oh yeah,
and on
absolutely.
different platforms as to how it would
All the different
appear.
Firefox, we use Chrome, obviously. We use it, we also do it on mobile applications, because that's different than what it would be on a PC, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, we test everything to make sure that it works across the board.
Dennis, we want to make sure we give you time to talk about how people get connected with you in your area for services, and also, of course, those potential supporters that might be out there, whatever word you want to leave with. But before we get to that sort of final wrap up, Bob, I wanted you to tell us a little more about the folks behind Accessibility Shield. Do you have people who are indeed blind and visually impaired doing the sort of legwork?
Absolutely. So one of the things, so there's two aspects of what we do that we started off very early on. We not only wanted it to be not just accessible but usable.
Mm-hmm.
So I jokingly call it AU, a gold standard, right? Because AU is a symbol for gold. Is that we want to be accessible and usable, because sometimes something could be accessible, but it's clunky.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a great point.
Yeah.
So we currently have two people right now that are testers that are disabled. We've had several people, project managers, salespeople, other testers that have moved on to other jobs. One of our initial things, we worked with with Harrisburg to develop a program for us, that we brought in people and taught them our skills. They helped fund it, initially, and one of them still with us right now, as a tester. So yeah, he's out. What's great too is he's not like local to Philadelphia. He's out by Pittsburgh. Dennis mentioned people don't have to come physically there, right? Because you don't when you're on the web. So currently we also have like I said, actually one of our developers has somewhat double vision and dyslexia too. Now he's not blind, but he's one of our best developers, right? So again, part of what we do is our idea is to make sure that we can incorporate and represent the communities we serve.
And I would imagine your clients have run the gamut from
Absolutely.
profit, nonprofit.
Absolutely. We love working with, we work with a lot of, the nonprofits have a special place, because we work with them either to do as much work we can at a reduced rate. Like I'm not going to say that's what we do for Dennis, but I don't know what he knows. No, but we know we work with you, right? We want to make sure, because again, our goal is digital accessibility for all, especially for nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually have sponsorships right now for my sister runs a nonprofit. Her son's autistic. So we're partners with them.
Mhm.
So we do this as much as we can across the board on all levels, and just try again not only getting the message but carrying the torch for as much as we can across to help us meet our core purpose.
So, what does it take to have a career in this field? If there's anyone that's interested in getting into how to make websites accessible, how to test the websites for accessibility, is there any resources or any path that would be good for folks to learn more about this area as a whole?
Well, as I noted earlier, um, a lot of the universities now are starting to build their curricula right out into that, so that there's more available teaching in the area. There's also, like I noted, I specifically there's also Trusted Tester and other programs and the IAAP, and just looking up, you can, it's a simple Google search or a simple website search that can help you. And you know, we can also, people have reached out to us on LinkedIn specifically. I mean, we get a lot of people who are either in the field or out, just to talk, and you can become part of those communities. There's a lot of communities that are out there that you can join that can help guide people if this is something they'd want to do.
If someone wanted to contact you, either a developer or a company looking to make their websites more accessible, how would they do that?
We're relaunching our most updated website, accessibilityshield.com. They can always email me too, bmoran@accessibilityshield.com. But there is a way, you can reach out to us, and a part of my old past is I was a big HR guy for a while. So I'm big in development and career guidance and helping people achieve their goals.
Dennis, tell folks in your area how they best can get connected with your services.
Well, of course, we do have our website, as we're talking about that, sitesforhope.org. We also have physical presences in the Lehigh Valley and Stroudsburg. Phones in the Lehigh Valley, 610-433-6018, or up in Monroe County, 570-992-7787. We're actually growing. We have been growing over the past 3 years. Our client population has actually grown about 28%. People are reaching out to us, and we are bringing them in and giving the best services possible. We also do have a lot of our clients come to us, in terms of clients, come to us through referrals through doctors and other entities, or even just simple word of mouth. Also, if for philanthropists out there, again, our website, I think, has a lot of great information. Also, go to GuideStar as well. GuideStar and Charity Navigator, which are great places for information. We're proud to be a 4-star charity through Charity Navigator. But again, sitesforhope.org gets you started. We kept it simple. My email is just dennis@sitesforhope.org. Make that easier. But we also have one called Ask, just as an ask a question at sitesforhope.org. Here's a little hint. I get both.
Well, I would definitely recommend people to look into Sites for Hope if you're interested in getting services related to blindness and visual impairment. And if you're looking to donate to a cause, to a charity that's doing some great work, I would definitely recommend donating to Sites for Hope, because I know that a lot of the programs you provide are at a very low cost or sometimes free to your participants.
Yeah,
Right.
Almost all of our services are free or at very low cost. Our transport service, yes, we do have tickets for our transports, but we never turn someone away who can't pay. Our assistive technologies, 75% of our clients who buy assistive technologies, we help them get some support through the state. 44% of our clients are below or right at the poverty line. So we try to keep our services as affordable as humanly possible. And yes, of course, philanthropic dollars are a huge part of our business. I'd say about 40, 41, 42% of our budget each year comes from private donations, grants, and things such as that. So we are always willing and very happy to take donations. And one point I just did want to quickly make, if you don't mind,
No, not at all.
is, as Bob made a reference to, everything's always changing on the web, and businesses are always changing. I'll give you, for instance, we recently went to a new back-end CRM for our fundraising, and with that came a different online donations. To our chagrin, we've learned that this platform is not incredibly accessible right now.
Right.
So one of the projects that we're working on, and we're going to be working on with Bob's team, is going to that platform and saying, look, you have you have this issue, and hopefully, what hopefully is then that platform will be able to take what they learn through this experience and then apply
Right.
it to other websites. So hopefully they're not just going to be fixing it in terms of our website, but other websites that this platform will. And it's a pretty large platform service.
It's clearly like a chain reaction, how there's nothing that's happening in isolation. Gentlemen, before we wrap up, now this is just my own curiosity, Dennis, and I didn't get a chance to ask this earlier, but you mentioned some of the stats of who you serve and how the population that you're serving is growing. And I wondered, and I think most of them are seniors, and I wondered, has that always been the case? Have you always leaned toward more of an older community, or is that reflection of how visual impairment is now affecting a wider community?
It's amazing. I've been with this organization now going on 7 years. Every year we do the statistics about what percentage of our clients are 65 and up, 55 and up. And every year it's like either this exact same number or within 1%. I mean, if you look globally, it still does tend to be especially a lot of the issues that we deal with, macular degeneration, et cetera,
Right.
they do tend to go older. But one thing that we're trying to do as far as our strategic plan is try to be more of a service for everybody. And one of the things we're looking to do and we're starting to do is build more youth programming. And then we have a great summer camp for kids. But then what do you do between the ages of 13 and 22? Well, we're starting to work on a teen program that's very career based. We try to reflect the community. We try to serve anyone who lives in our area and has the right and qualifies and has the need. We'll try to help you.
Oh, yes. I was very struck by the individualistic approach that you have on your website and your service offerings as to you have locations where people can get services. You also have in-home consultations as well. I believe on your site it mentioned that.
Right.
And I know that you recently just uploaded a story about one of your clients, speaking of the impact, talking about her story and that she works at the company, Jasmine. Is that right?
Well, she does. This is a story about one of our clients up in Monroe County named Jasmine. She had been dealing with glaucoma, I believe it's glaucoma, since the age of 9, and carries a white cane proudly. One day she was in a crosswalk that she uses all the time and got run over by a car. And when I mean run over, I mean
Oh my
literally run
Lord.
over. When she tells the story, she talks about she wondered if she was going to be crushed to death or burnt to death. She was screaming. The person didn't hear her. Anyway, so what had happened is she got through that, and she'd always been this dynamo. Nothing would ever stop her. And she wasn't actually a client of ours at that point, but she had got connected with us and worked and got into our peer support groups. And what's great about our peer support groups is it is led by a gentleman who has lived his entire life with a visual impairment. In fact, I believe he is completely blind. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but he does definitely fits in the low vision spectrum.
Yeah.
And so, and that's what's important, of course, is we call it a peer support group because it is of your peers. And this gentleman didn't show, except, always had humanity about her, but also said, hey, look, stop worrying about what you can't do. Start thinking about what you can do. Now, as we said at the time, as I said earlier, I'm a sighted person. If I say that, it doesn't have the same resonance because I don't
Right.
walk, and I understand that. But anyway, through this person's help, Jasmine really has processed her emotions. She's come out the other side. She's now teaching Braille to other clients of ours right now, and she's starting graduate studies. She wants to become a teacher for people who have visual impairments, which is a very specialized field.
Sure.
But it kind of underlines to the fact that more and more is about mental health. I've said a million times that COVID taught me that we being Sites for Hope are in the mental health business, and everyone's in the mental health business. And often when a client comes to us for the first time, the biggest issue we have to deal with is the mental health issue.
And the emotional.
Especially because a lot of our clients start off sighted. Most of our clients actually do. And then something will happen later in their lives. And it becomes almost like, and my associate director and director of services talks about all the time, you go through the stages of grief. It's almost like that. And we've learned that as great as our services are, until your mindset is in a certain place,
That's right.
it isn't going to help you.
That's right.
So what Jasmine's story talks about is the power of course, peer support, and also just understanding the mental health component and the emotional component. Now she's back. Nothing could stop her. And what we've been saying with this campaign is glaucoma at age 9 couldn't stop this woman. Being run over by a 2,000-pound car couldn't stop this woman. Nothing should stop you from donating to Sites for Hope.
That is a powerful, powerful testimony, Dennis. Thank you for that. That's a wonderful note to end on. I'm so glad Jasmine is on the other side of that. That's a horrific thing to go through.
Yeah, that's something we talk about a lot, is the peer support and just the value of being connected with other people who understand the same feelings, the same things that we go through. So yeah, we definitely are well acquainted with that.
When COVID was at its height and at its very beginning, and people were wondering, well, when are you going to get back to being face-to-face and one-on-one? People were saying, well, they were asking me, are your clients worried to get back together? And them being older, I said, look, our clients were pushing us to go back to in-person before we did.
Wow.
Why? Because they knew how important that was, that to get together. Yes, we were doing support groups by phone. Yes, we were doing it by Zoom.
Sure.
But they were the ones who were craving that. And that taught us a lot about how important that truly is.
Bob, did you have any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I'd like to say that, as for our organization, we're very proud to be in this niche. It's something that, we would like to continue to grow and make people more aware, even if they're not using our services. Of course, we'd prefer that, but again, and we work with. It's one of the reasons why we work with marketing and digital marketing and compliance firms is to reach our clients. We have thousands of clients in our system, and the idea is to continue to grow that so that we can continue to get the message to achieve our vision of digital accessibility for all.
Dennis Zahner, Bob Morin, thank you so much for being on White Canes Connect with us.
Thank you for having us. I appreciate you reaching out.
Thank you very much.
So what an interesting and informative conversation. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Dennis. I hope two things: that companies out there realize the importance of involving accessibility in the beginning of your development of your websites, and the fact that it's also very affordable to do so. It's cost effective to do it on the front end.
Yes, I really enjoyed talking to Bob and Dennis and learning about their stories, and I could really hear their passion and their enthusiasm for the work that they do and the inclusion practices that can include everyone who's disabled or not disabled in accessing the internet and having that equitable access to their services.
So if you have an accessibility issue that this conversation reminded you of, share it with us. If you've had some challenges with websites, you can share those experiences with us. You can email us at whitecanesconnect@gmail.com.
Or you can give us a call and leave us a message at 267-338-4495. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for guest co-hosting, Simon.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Bye, everybody.